Alright, Doc. I'm going to London. Saturday,
Big
22nd.
night tonight. Big night tonight.
That's it. It's going to be great. It'll be a big fight. What's the verdict, Doc?
Knockout 5th round, mate.
Knockout 5th round. Luckily, you're not a gambling man, so we don't put money on it. Or else we'll be getting rich.
Didn't say who's going to get knocked out.
We know what we're vouching for. Beautiful. Sun shining. Look at that. We're in the countryside from Bristol, heading down to London. In that fueling.
Now I got my
Yeah, so your jaw.
Yeah, so basically, when you're working on someone's jaw, it has such an impact on their proprioception and the way their body responds and their spatial awareness, because it's not just, your jaw isn't just for eating. The synovial joint, which is part of your temporomandibular joint here, is filled with proprioceptors. So these are like the sensors. Like when you have when you have an alarm in the house and you move and the sensor goes off. Well, you've got millions of those in your joints, right? And your jaw is like extremely important in terms of your spatial awareness and your sensory kind of coordination and making sure everything's in sync. So when you have tightnesses and restrictions in the jaw, it can play a big part on your gross motor function. And like I was saying, basically there's chiropractors who will work on people who have kind of severe neurological disorders and they work on their jaw. There's even this the Leicester guy, I don't know if you know his name, I can't remember his name actually, but basically he suffers with a rare condition in which he's got a motor disorder, and it's involving his hands and it's involving his speech, but he's going to the States for specialist treatment and stuff, but he even testified, he was like, when they worked on my jaw, he was like, my hands and everything started changing. And that's not even in the field of chiropractic, that's in the field of neurology and the specialist who we were seeing, which I think was an integrative practitioner in the States. But what we're doing for Derek today, where we're going to be working on his jaw, isn't just about his jaw. This is about his coordination, this is about his hand-eye movement, this is about his spatial awareness, this is about him being able to duck and dive, and this is about him having that feedback going to his brain to coordinate where his positioning is throughout his whole body and not just his jaw. So even though, it may seem like that, and it's like, yeah, we're loosening up the jaw so that it loosens up, and I've talked about the mechanism that when you get punched, if your jaw is stiff, then your head will spin straight away, right? Whereas if your jaw is loose and mobile and you get punched, you'll have that slight little bit of give, that little bit of bounce and elasticity where the jaw moves and your head won't spin as, and
you won't get on the floor knocked out.
You won't get knocked out, yeah. So you'll still get the impact, but this is just like the seatbelt, right? So if I have a seatbelt and suddenly I crash, the seatbelt stops, okay, and I get a sudden jolt. But if you have a car which has been in a car accident, you can't reuse these seatbelts. And the reason is because what makes the seatbelt, or what gives the seatbelt some of its properties, is the fact that when it is pulled suddenly, you get a very small amount of deformation within the belt. So the belt actually stretches a tiny bit. And that small amount of stretch allows that little bit of cushioning, which stops us from having a sudden impact. Okay, so this is the same thing with the jaw, the same principle which I'm talking about. When you have that small amount of elasticity in that impact, it softens the blow. And it's the same way when you're using something with, for example, gloves with cushioning and gloves and someone without any cushioning. This is why obviously you have padding in the gloves. So to summarize, jaw work for combat sports and also kind of upper cervical work is so important before a fight, and this is why we're traveling all the way down to London. Just for that. So it's not musculoskeletal, it's also neurological as well. Yeah, very neurological. So we can look at it from a number of different mechanisms, but also from the neurological perspective, it has a very big impact and a very big kind of functionality. Right. And even though some of the fighters, it's beyond them to explain this to them, but when I work with them and I tell them, listen, just shut up, let me do my job. I mean, just trust. Shut up, That's what we tell them. Yeah. Sometimes these guys can be a bit bossy, like, "What are you doing this and that?" Just look, shut up, let me do my job, and you'll see the results. And that's what happens. We do that work, and they come away from it saying, "You know what? Number one, I feel amazing, and number two, and what's most important, when they perform, they become, that extra edge that they have, and that. It's everything, man. It's everything. Yeah,
Especially when you're going 12 rounds and you're getting sparked in the jaw, you know, repeatedly, and you're taking impact.
Yeah. And the way this fighter works with Derek, obviously he's, you know, we all know that he's a, you know, his fights are like slugging fests, you know, just one punch after the other, just exchanging blows one after the other. And dealing with him after the last match with Takam, you know, he took blows, but the only difference is in that fight that he survived those blows and Takam didn't, and that's the difference between, you know, that's the difference between kind of success and failure. And you know, these things are very, very fragile. You know, you can have amazing skill, but you get hit with the shot. You know, you just make one small mistake, you get hit with a shot, and game over.
Night.